This is Cube's all-new super lightweight e-bike, and it's running Bosch's new SX motor system, with 55 Nm of torque and up to 600 watts of peak power with a 400 watt-hour internal battery. And it's called the Cube 144. I've got to say that personally, I'm a massive fan of the overall look and aesthetic of this bike. I think it's extremely pleasing on the eye. It's got really nice clean lines and an extremely slim profile to it. Cube's industrial design has improved a lot in their recent line of e-bikes, and I think they've gone from some fairly boxy and some of the more generic looking e-bikes to now having a more elegant and a refined design. So this bike is their super lightweight trail bike, and it's based around a full carbon frame, which is actually really lightweight. It weighs only 2.1 kilos for the entire frame, and it's got 140 of rear wheel travel and a 140mm fork. Now, before we go on to the specifics of the new Bosch motor and the rest of the bike, I want to share the weight and the pricing, because it really does seem to buck the trend a little bit. With many e-bikes in the super light category, you actually have to pick the highest price bike in the range to actually get the super light bike. And then the lower spec, cheaper models are often many kilos heavier than the higher spec models. And it's not unheard of for brands to launch a sub 18 kilo e-bike, but you actually have to pay somewhere between £10,000 and £13,000 to get that super lightweight bike. And the cheaper entry level models are usually quite a lot heavier. But the Cube is a little bit different. Allow me to explain. This model here is the top spec model, and it weighs 17.8 kilos in size large, and it's priced at $7,999. But get this, the entry level model is actually half a kilo lighter, and it weighs 17.3 kilos, and it's priced at $5,499. So it's £2,500 cheaper and 500 grams lighter. Although it is a much lighter duty build overall, it's got a Fox 34 and a more basic shock. And the weight can actually get as low as 16.2 kilos in the lightest possible build. And again, it's a lighter duty bike with a lighter duty build. But if you're seeking one of the lightest e-bikes on the market with Bosch's new motor system, then I think this is the bike. So across the four models, Cube have opted to make two of them as light as possible, and the other two have got a beefier build and more heavier duty trail components. So back to the model I've got here, and it's got the burlier build. So Fox Factory 36, a Float X with a piggyback reservoir. It's got a full carbon frame, carbon wheels, carbon cranks, carbon bar, and it's got SRAM's new T-type transmission, and this is the full XX drivetrain. Now, there's not a lot of Bosch SX bikes that have actually hit the market just yet, but I do expect it to be a really popular system because it's got 55 Nm of torque, and at higher rider cadences can put out 600 watts of power, which is not far from the full power motor. And if you compare that to other lightweight systems on the market, it does punch really high. Most of the other lightweight SL systems are around 50 Nm, but they put out around 300 watts. So this Bosch at 600 watts is putting out a fair amount more than those other motors. Although to access the full 600 watts of power, you do need to spin at quite a high cadence. And on my test on this bike, it's not the type of motor that you can spin at low cadences and expect it to kind of winch you up. You definitely need to work to get that full 600 watts of power. The Bosch app is pretty neat, and it allows for some customizations of the modes. And on the latest update, you can now choose which modes the bike actually has. So, for example, I can replace the eco mode with the auto mode. It's a bit like mapping the motor software or remapping it, and it's a new thing that launched a few weeks ago. Before you had to go to your dealer to get this done. Cube have done a decent job wrapping the carbon frame around the motor, and I think it's got quite a sleek and slender look. It's helped by the fact that there's no big opening at the bottom for the battery to slide out of, which does mean that the battery is completely fixed into the bike, so you can't remove it, other than if there's a warranty issue, which will be a dealer job. The new battery has got a high energy density for the weight though. It weighs 2 kilos for the whole battery, and it's got a 400 watt-hour capacity. So that works out around 200 watt-hours per kilo, and that helps keep the overall weight of the bike down. In fact, the energy density of this new battery is better than Bosch's bigger battery, so I hope this battery tech trickles down into that bigger 750 watt-hour battery. Speaking of batteries, there is a Bosch range extender. It's called the PowerMore, and that adds another 250 watt hours if you need it. The range extender weighs 1.5 kilos though, and will actually take up the water bottle space if you use it. Still, it's for sure a nice option to have, because if you add that and the internal battery, you've got 650 watt hours of total battery capacity, which is a fair amount for a lightweight bike. So the bike's built as a lightweight trail bike, and the bike geometry reflects that. So full 29er. Head angle is 65.5 degrees in the slackest position. It's got a flip chip that steepens it up to 66 degrees. And the rest of the geo looks fairly standard for this type of bike and its intended purpose. So all in, I'd say it's a pretty decent spec and true lightweight e-bike at a really decent price. On paper, the stats are quite impressive. A £39 or sub 18 kilo e-bike with a proper trail build, decent sized battery, and a look that is really well matched to the bike. And the Bosch motor with its high peak power output might make this a good e-bike for anyone that's looking for a lightweight but has a little bit more punch. So stay tuned for the full video that's coming real soon, and subscribe if you want to be the first to see that. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all soon.